So one of the most common questions I get is what should a team weekly schedule look like, or how should we even schedule a day? Should we start with VODs? Should we focus more on VODs than scrims? Should we do 1 day of scrims, 1 day of VODs, and so on? And it's understandable, hard question, but my answer to it is always just as simple as possible, but I focus more on the organizing rather than the structure of it, because not every team has a coach. Not every team might have the resources to spend, for example, their agenda or whatever, their day on as many hours as, for example, an OWL team, or let's say it's an open team and they want to get to contenders. Maybe they can't scrim as often, so you have to create a schedule adapted to whatever the needs are and what the possibilities are. So I usually say, if we structure it by let's start with a Monday, and we have 7 days of practice, and let's say or maybe not 7, but there's a match in the weekend or something, and let's imagine that we're in contenders and that we play, I don't know, 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. doesn't really matter. But we're starting off on a Monday, and the best way to start off the Monday is by talking about the previous week. You have everyone gather for a meeting, just like a briefing or something. You talk about the last week, you talk about the goals you had last week, the theme. You go over what changes you made, if you made any changes, how well you achieved the goals, and was there any big struggles? Was it too easy? Was it completely different from what you expected it to be? How did the match go and all that? You want to recap the last week, because usually after a match day you want to take some day off, and players might feel sluggish or coaches might be forgetful, stuff happens, and for the team's sake you want to recap. So when you talk about the changes from the last week, if you made any changes, you want to talk about the major changes. For example, if you on Monday set out to play triple tank, just an example, and then you midweek change the approach completely and you want to play 2-2 or dive or something, then you got to make a note for the future, because you want to know what thought process you had and what made you make the change, and just for your own sake. The actual change itself, it's not that important. It's more why you change and so on, because you want to be able to reflect and understand your thought process. Then the second thing is, what are the goals of the current week? What is the theme? What are the opponents? What's the map pool like, and so on. And it shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes to go over this. Usually if the team has a coach, let's say our team doesn't have coaches, but I'm gonna talk about a team that might have coaches. You usually expect the coaches to have some plan for the week. It's not that big of a task to scout opponents, suggest some approaches, and figure out what the best chances of winning are, and setting up some practice theme. You want to prepare that for the Monday. You want to have it ready for the players and have some goals set. But if the team doesn't have any coaches, then you gotta sit down with the team members. Let's say it's a group of players. So we sit down, we go over the map pool, we go over the match schedule. When are we playing? For example, if we're playing 10 p.m. or 6 p.m., who are we playing? How many scrim blocks do we have this week? And what type of compositions do we want to use on attack or defense on the maps? Which maps are strong maps, all that kind of stuff. But you don't want to overthink it. You want to keep it simple, of course. And it's just have like a rough idea of what the week might look like. And let's say you have a couple of strategies in your playbook. Then you pull out the most appropriate one. Let's say it's maybe gonna require some adjustments. That's all fine. You make the adjustments as they come. And just make sure you make observations and take notes and think in an objective way, basically, when you think about this strats or theme and so on, because you wanna, as I mentioned for the last week, you wanna make sure that you know why you decide upon something, and basically if it goes well or not, that's for the future to worry about. But yeah, no one will be able to go back in time, and it's usually not that easy to go back in time and then take an opinion or thought that someone had, and then it's maybe different to whatever someone has now, and players might feel shame or feel that they don't want to confront that something went bad, or maybe they feel like they deserve credit for something they come up with but they didn't receive it and so on. You can avoid all these things by just writing down simple notes and keeping like a team journal. So you wanna, after the meeting, basically 10 or 15 minutes long, you wanna move on to VODs. And the reason for VODs before scrims and practice and so on is because the day before, let's say we didn't scrim on a Sunday, but on the Tuesday we will. So if you practice the day before and then you talk about this match scrims after, at the end of the day, that's all fine, that's good. But you won't be able to see all the major details that you maybe forgot or didn't want to see, or in the moment couldn't see. Sometimes it's easy to get blind by stress or fatigue or tilt or whatever, and it's much easier to look back on the day after some sleep, and it's also a good recap. It helps visualize what's gonna be done in the day after, and it helps create some guide for the team essentially. So yeah, once the meeting is over, don't forget some air, go through VODs or whatever if you have any, and then prepare for scrims. You wanna warm up, you wanna make sure that you're ready for the scrim, so that when you enter the server, when you enter the map, you don't waste half of a scrim, 1 hour or almost 2 hours on just warming up, because that's lost practice time, and every player has the responsibility of being 100% ready for practice when the practice arrives. And that means if you gotta wake up at 10 to warm up, let's say 2 hours, and then be ready for scrims at 12, that's on you. Like, you have to be ready at 12 with your warm up. And if you're not ready, then you're basically letting down your team. You're not making the most of your time as possible. For example, because not for example, but I mean, there's time that you can take from when you would stay up. For example, if you stay up for fun late, you can take that time to sleep. You can use the time in the morning to warm up, and you can be more efficient in scrims. Remember to you go into scrims after the break and warm up, and then take 1 hour, take 5 minutes of not rest, but like air, whatever, every 1 hour. Most teams don't really mind it. And then 30 to 60 minutes for a longer break when needed. Usually in OWL teams, you take it after the first 2 hours or after the first 2 blocks. It really depends on what the scheduling is like for the team, like if you have lunch together, if you just have a snack and so on. But you want to make sure that you have time to breathe. You want to have time to get some air, get some food, get some water and so on. And once the day is over, basically, let's say three scrim blocks is usually typical. That's about 6 hours of effective scrim. You want to end on a good note. You want to discuss some stuff. Maybe some players don't agree with each other. That's all fine. You can agree to disagree. And then at the very end, you want to talk about 3 things that you did well and 3 things that you could have done better, and rotate from player to player so that each player has their opportunity or chance to, give their opinions, give their thoughts, feelings, and so on. And yeah, basically, if someone wants to talk, they talk. If they don't want to talk, that's all fine. And you just let every player have a chance to speak. So yeah, basically close the day on a high note. And let me see if I forgot anything. Yeah. Basically, you're just gonna recap to take VODs at the start of a day instead of at the end of a day, because it's easy. It's really easy to get stuck in a VOD and go 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours extra overtime, and you don't really gain anything. Most of the time it's to confirm that someone was right, or that confirm that you saw something, or maybe you had some idea that you wanted to correct or something. But it's much better to take a note, or let's say you don't like to write, you can take you can record your voice, like with your phone or something, record a note, take it to the next day, and maybe you don't even think the same way after you've slept. Maybe you process it while you sleep, while you are at home. Doesn't really matter, but there's always better chances to go over stuff from the day previous, the day after. And yeah, this is what the first day can look like. Once the first day is over, you basically want to repeat the first day as the second day as well. But you don't really have to plan out what strats, what theme and so on. You just want to recap what you planned from the first day for the week. You want to go over, okay, this is what we're going to play in this scrim. We're going to play these maps versus these opponents for this reason. And it's pretty simple. You keep it simple. If you have any notes from the scrims the day before, you take it in a VOD. Also make sure you take notes of and timestamps of the VOD, or where in the VOD you want to go to, because skimming through VODs is basically a waste of time. I know many players that does it, and you don't want to spend a VOD session looking for stuff to talk about. You should already have them ready, lined up. If you don't have that, it's better to just put the VOD aside and do something else. Focus on getting ready for a scrim, because if you don't really have anything to talk about, there's no point in trying to find something to talk about. It just leads to frustration in the end, because it puts the team in a state where you try to find errors when you don't really need to find them. If you gotta make adjustments to the strat or change a strat completely, that's all fine. You do it. You note why you did it, and what was changed. Also, you can also note who changed it or who came up with it, just because you wanna, let's say you want to reward the person, or it doesn't really matter. You can do that, and then you repeat this day in, day out. You make small changes as possible, because you want to keep consistency for the team. So if you make small changes, that allows the team to stay on topic with what the theme is, what they learned, what they can expect, and so on. And if you gotta make major changes, make sure that it's valuable to make them, and try to not to make major changes based on emotional reactions, because it's the same as making big decisions in real life based on emotional reactions. Doesn't always end up well. But yeah, repeat this until the match comes. Make sure that you end the day when the match would end, for example, so that the player's energy is balanced to be at their height or their peak or whatever, when the match is supposed to be, so that the players don't feel fatigue when the match is about to set in because of how the natural body schedule is and all that stuff. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Really simple to be effective, and you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to bring in much science. It's just keep it simple and consistent, and that brings a lot of results.